I gotta tell you, with this Drake and Kendrick thing, I'm not having fun anymore. Like, it got too dirty, too personal. Their kids are brought into it. It is making me uncomfortable. Today on the podcast, I want to zero in on one dimension that's making me most uncomfortable, which is how Drake and Kendrick have been using women as props. I'm Elamin Abdul-Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Can I just tell you all the things that I didn't expect? I didn't expect that Kendrick and Drake would, this beef would last over a month. We're still talking about this thing. I didn't expect it to produce this many songs. I didn't expect that this beef would produce an actual hit, and yet alone Kendrick's newest song, and Not Like Us. It has a really good chance of debuting at number one, which is kind of wild to me. And I most certainly did not expect that, like, the lyrical war would go from friendly-ish competition, right, to some of the most scathing personal attacks you can possibly imagine. They even implicated each other's kids and partners and family members and friends and associates. Accusations back and forth, accusations without proof back and forth, some of which are kind of like criminal in nature. And then it gets a little bit more complicated. This week, a security guard was shot outside of Drake's mansion in Toronto. I have to also note that, like, right now there is no evidence linking that shooting to this Drake-Kendrick feud, but it speaks to the ugliness, right? Like, no one is having fun anymore. The conversation around this feud has just gotten uglier and uglier. Clarkisha Kent and Charles Holmes have a lot to say about this. Clarkisha, Charles, welcome to the show, y'all.
Yo,
good morning.
As tired as I am.
I'm tired. I am furious. Can't believe that they're making us do this. Okay, good. Clarkisha, I'm going to start with you on this. Did you expect this feud to get this nasty from the start?
I did, actually. So I'm an Astro head.
Wow, you saw it. You saw it coming. Okay, go.
What you need to know about that is Kendrick is a Gemini. So just to give you some context on what that means. We have Donald Trump, we have Kanye West, and we have Azalea Banks.
Wow, you brought astrology into it. You're like they're a specific kind of messy, but this has lasted a long time though, Clarkisha. Like, did you expect it to just kind of keep going? This many weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kendrick strikes me as very petty. I don't say it as an insult, but like I feel like. He's giving
all
that.
Right.
Like, if you go low, I'm going to the bottom of Dante's Inferno. That's what he's giving. Yeah.
Charles, what about you? Were you sort of anticipating this level of nastiness?
I mean, not originally, because I was just like, these two men are way too wealthy to debase themselves in this way for what seems to be a beef about truly nothing when you boil it down. Yeah. But I think historically speaking, once a rapper goes I'm bringing your family into this, I'm bringing wives and baby mothers, I was like, oh no, this is going nuclear. Yeah. And that happened very fast.
Yeah, the degree to which it went nuclear is what I want to get at today. So, Clarkisha, I mentioned that, this whole thing has had these like nasty kind of disturbing allegations. The type of accusation that Kendrick and Drake have been making towards each other have just been making so many people uncomfortable. What to you was the most alarming accusation that Kendrick made of Drake?
Definitely the pedophile mention. I think one of the songs, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. He was talking about like mansion parties and like funneling people. Very dark, considering, for example, what's happening with Diddy right now. So I was like, whoa.
So, Clarkisha, I was having a bit of trouble hearing you there as you were talking, but just for folks who didn't sort of get the full gist of that is like one of the things that, Kendrick says in this newest song, and Not Like Us, is he says Certified Lover Boy, which is the name of Drake's second last album, and then he says Certified Pedophile. Like that's a serious accusation, also a very ugly one that is like kind of presented again with that proof. Charles, as I said, like these scathing accusations have kind of gone both ways. What for you has been the most troubling thing that Drake has said about Kendrick, and Drake has said a lot about Kendrick so far?
Yeah, so I think it really, the most troubling accusation that he has doubled down, honestly tripled down on at this point, is that Kendrick, he alleges that Kendrick has a history of assaulting women, and I think assaulting specifically his partner. So he has gone on and on about basically Kendrick having to hire a crisis PR firm to cover up this alleged assault. Yeah. And then he took it one step further, alleging that one of Kendrick's children with his partner is the child of his business partner, day free. So that's how ugly that side of the beef has gotten.
I believe he's pronounced Day Freeze. That's how he says it. I will say that, like, again, all of these accusations, literally no proof. No one on either side is willing to present any particular shred of evidence for the thing that they're alleging.
No fact checking here. There's no fact checking departments in rap beef, unfortunately.
It turns out you can just say anything that you want to say. Clarkisha, like you sort of note this type of hypocrisy that is kind of this in this feud, right? Like, particularly because of how it kind of implicates the women in both Drake and Kendrick's lives. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because it's quite wild to hear Drake accusing Kendrick of saying, "Hey, man, I don't think you treat women well." You're like, Drake, this is you? You're the one speaking about this? That's pretty wild. So can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah. So just real quick, I was side-eyeing both of them. With Kendrick, let's see, he's worked with Dr. Dre before, who we know beat up D Barnes, which very upsetting. She's a hip hop journalist. She was doing her job. Kendrick has also worked with Kodak Black, who, pled to a lesser charge related to
Kodak Black was convicted at this. That's right. Yeah.
Then you have Yes, he played. Yep, and like Meg. Who else? Yeah,
sorry,
Meg,
Clarkisha.
And then Brianna and Serena.
Clarkisha, if I can just interrupt you for just a moment. For some reason, your intro is kind of going kind of in and out there. There's having a bit of trouble hearing some of what you were saying, but some of the conversation about Megan Thee Stallion, if I can just fill in the blanks there, Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez was recently convicted of shooting Megan Thee Stallion. In that conversation, Drake had kind of sided with Tory Lanez in that conversation. Yes. And so he just felt a little bit rich, this particular, thing that Drake is saying about Kendrick coming out of Drake, out of all people. Charles, there is this long history of using, how do I put this? Of rappers using women in beef, particularly as like ornaments, particularly as props in the conversation. Can you just give us some of the most prominent examples of this, how this has come up before?
Yeah, I think the two ones that stick out to me, the first is just one of the most famous opening lines in hip hop comes from like "Hit 'Em Up" by Tupac.
Don't say it. Don't say it, Charles. We're on the radio. You can't say it.
Whoa. All right. I'm not going there. I'm not touching that. But yes, so "Hit 'Em Up," Tupac alleges that he slept with Faith, who had a long relationship with Notorious B.I.G.
Sure.
There's Super Ugly, where essentially Jay is, I honestly can't say the stuff that he was alleging that he did with one of the baby mothers of Nas. He ended up having to, his mom, it's legendary at this point, his mom called Jay up and was like, "You need to apologize. This has gone too far." Yeah. And he went up to Hot 97 to apologize. And even the most recent, Quavo and Chris Brown are beefing right now, and they are lobbing accusations back and forth, essentially being like, which one of us has been worse to women historically?
Yeah.
So this is not something that's new.
Yeah. Clarkisha, we should make it clear that like misogyny in rap is like not it's not a unique instance. It is a reflection of like larger misogyny and patriarchy and pop culture in general. You've written about the struggle that Black women have faced in navigating sort of pop culture's patriarchal design in general. What was that navigation? What does that look like for you as a culture critic covering rap culture particularly?
It's like this double consciousness essentially, because like I like the music, right?
Sure.
But also the music has called me all sorts of names, so
yeah,
it's very contradictory. And it makes me sad because the art form, it's an art form. And it's almost like they don't want us as women to participate because of how, they refer to us. And that also makes it hard for us to do our job. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned earlier with D Barnes, that's a very tragic and very enraging example. So, she loved the form and she didn't get to fully enjoy it because you have artists beating her up for doing her job. Mm-hmm. Very, very dark, very, very dark for us in this business.
Charles, if we can just come back to the Kendrick and Drake feud, you wrote about it recently for The Ringer, and in that piece you said, "This is what happens when the old guard becomes the only guard. I'm really interested in that sentiment." What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that just because of the way that we consume music right now with streaming and everything, if you think about rap is a genre where there's always somebody coming up to take your spot. Superstars beget superstars, you know?
Sure.
You could trace the lineage of NWA and Dre and Pac to Kendrick, and Drake is coming from a lineage of 50 Cent and Kanye and all these things.
Sure.
With streaming, everything is so diffuse.
Yeah, so disembodied, right? Like you don't necessarily have a, yeah.
Yeah, so now it's like Drake and Kendrick are kind of probably the last celebrity superstars that your mom or your father will know who Drake or Kendrick is, because one of them won a Pulitzer and the other one started as a child actor and is now just as famous as Taylor Swift. And I think that this beef is so existential because you're like, these two men who are kind of like the last of their superstar kind are wrestling in the mud over, once again, when you peel back why they're fighting, you're like, was it really worth throwing women and children on the front line to satiate your ego? Probably not.
Right. The idea that these are the last rap superstars is interesting to me. I'm interested in that because I think that's true. I don't think you're going to get any rappers who are as famous as these two, you know, and we've seen rap try to create same level of superstardom, but there is a cost to that because, you know, Clarkisha, that amounts to the last great rap superstars dragging each other in the mud and maybe dragging each other's legacies down by just sort of slinging these accusations back and forth. What do you make of what Charles was saying there?
I would agree with him because no, I don't see anyone in the music industry really fostering the talent. That's the thing that kills me. It's like, okay, the talent is out there. There's just no way it isn't. But you have to have someone who brings it up. And, you know, these studios and these companies and these labels are more concerned with, you know, monetizing. And I'm like, well, you can't monetize if you don't give these people the resources to develop their talents. Sure. So that's where we are right now. So I definitely agree with Charles. We can't get any superstardom without that support, that fostering.
Charles, I'm interested in the way that Kendrick has also used, you know, the thing that has made Drake such an effective superstar, which is Drake is a very good, you know, culture sampler. He dips into all different kinds of styles, which makes him a very good pop star. He's very good, you know, he's a very adaptable kind of pop star. And then Kendrick, especially with Not Like Us, but with many of the other songs, he's saying, Drake, you don't really have a home, man. Like you're not really from anywhere, and therefore your music doesn't stand for anything. To me, that is like a blow to the legacy of Drake, to the story of Drake, to the very proposition of what Drake is trying to do to the music industry. Do you see any of their blows to each other as kind of fatal to their legacies? Like, will we look at these stars ever the same again after this is done?
No. And I think because people forget, and it's just like time tends to flatten, where it's just like Jay-Z lost the beef to Nas if you ask most rap fans. Yeah. But if you look in 2024, culturally, who has more cachet? You know, it's like, I do think what we need to always keep in mind is that, like, financially, this beef has probably been very good for both of them, but especially Kendrick. And people are like, well, claiming that Drake might be a pedophile or a groomer or any of these accusations might hurt Drake in the short term. In the long term, it's like, unless any of this is proven, it will be business to usual, because companies like UMG have enough money and influence and power to make it so it's business as usual, which is not great, but that's the history of recorded music.
I was going to say, go ahead, Clarkisha.
So if I can jump in real quick, I actually slightly disagree with you, Charles, in that social media was not a thing back in the day with these beefs, right? So when we're talking social media and beefs like this, it has the potential to extend these kind of beefs and what they would do to one's legacy. I'll give a really quick example. BBL Drizzy, the beat that Metro Boomin came up with, is like going insanely viral on TikTok right now. Like, people are like doing things to it in other languages. So like, I saw someone put a rap in Japanese on it, and I'm like, okay.
Drake is being clowned in Japanese. It's a wonderful time. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We might do more than we think. Yeah.
Listen, obviously this is not done, as much as we all wish it was maybe done. So we're going to keep checking on this conversation. In the meantime, Charles, Clarkisha, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Yo, thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We'll have you back on. Clarkisha Kent is a culture critic, writer, and author of Fat On, Fat Off, A Big Bitch Manifesto. Charles Holmes is a staff writer and podcaster at The Ringer. I'm Elamin Abdul-Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Look, I don't know if you've been catching the John Mulaney's live show on Netflix this week, but if you did, you might have thought that you time traveled back to like a few decades ago, because he's got a new sort of live variety show. It's running for only a week. It's got phone-ins. It's got star guests. It's got a set that looks like a 90s sort of television talk show set, maybe a 70s, actually, talk show set, and it's got a whole lot of glitches.
On Friday, we had a few first show glitches and kinks, but I want you to know, we heard your complaints, I met with the crew, and I promise you, from the bottom of my heart, they will absolutely happen again. People said, though, they said that they liked the loose, clunky feeling of the show. Well, if you did, you are in luck. They said they liked how impulsive and random it was. Qualities of mine that almost killed me a couple of years ago.
It's John Mulaney, opening monologue from Monday. Yes, he's making a reference there to his recent battle with addiction. Now, look, I would say it's hard to sum up what he's doing with the show called Everybody's in LA. This is a week-long run of live shows about hyper-local issues, LA issues. We're talking coyotes. We're talking about dying palm trees. It also feels kind of important to say that he's doing something that nobody's done recently, and I think somebody should do this, which is make the case for the power of live television. Kathryn VanArendonk is here. She's a regular on Commotion and a TV critic of Vulture. Kathryn, welcome to the show, pal.
I'm always happy to be here.
Should we talk about palm trees for a minute? Should we do that?
Yes. Okay. Yes, please.
Okay.
Please.
You know what? Let's save the palm trees for just a moment.
Okay.
We'll get that. Let's start with Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart and Jerry Seinfeld were on the show. Jerry Seinfeld said it was the weirdest show he's ever been on in his life, which is fair enough. Jon Stewart said he felt like the entire show was a Banksy, which is a lovely compliment. Yeah. For anyone who's not seen the show and they're just hearing about this for the first time right now, how would you describe it?
So the experience is you open up Netflix at a place that you usually go to pick whatever you feel like. It has existed forever in some kind of algorithm. You have no idea when it came out. Maybe it was a year ago. Maybe it was yesterday. You don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a show that was on USA for 10 years. But instead of that, what you see in the corner, if it's at 10 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Pacific, is it's like a screen. It says live with a little live button, and you press it. And then magically at 10 p.m., like TV was supposed to for decades.
Like the olden days. Yeah.
A thing starts happening. Yeah. And it is John Mulaney in this studio. He has a new longer haircut, which I think is not unimportant. Yeah. And he's holding a clipboard where you can clearly see like a run of show on the clipboard.
Like a lengthy, wordy script that he's going through.
Yes, that he's going through.
Yeah.
And his sort of announcer, Andy Richter sidekick character is Richard Kind, who's glorious and fantastic and strange. And he introduces, as you mentioned, some very hyper-local thing. Once it was helicopters. Last night's was the paranormal. And then he brings out a collection of guests, some of whom are comedians and some who are like experts or sort of just strange Los Angeles types of people. And they all sit on a couch together. And you're like, why is this happening? Why are any of these people in the same room together? It really reminds me, like sometimes social media clips go viral of talk shows from like the 60s. And you're like, why is Gore Vidal sitting next to Sally Struthers, right? And that's
how did we get here? Yeah.
Yes. This is really the vibe of what this show is. It's very strange. I'm very fond of it, but I don't think it always works, but I kind of like it even when it doesn't.
Yeah, like I agree with you. Like that's what's working for me about it, is that I feel like I'm getting a peek into like, this is how John Mulaney's thinking today. And maybe it's not linear, maybe it's not sort of straightforward, like, oh, here's a topic, we're going to get into the weeds of it. But the palm trees one is a good example, right? So the palm trees one is like John Mulaney comes out and he says, hey, everybody knows I hate trees, but let me just talk to you for a moment about palm trees. And then he kind of goes through why the palm trees, which have become like this iconic symbol in California, are dying. And it might be, LA has to face the choice of like whether to replace the palm trees or not. There's a palm tree expert sitting next to Jon Stewart, and your brain is trying to make sense of what you're watching. He asked her, he goes like, "Hey, did I explain it well?" And she's like, "Yeah, you mostly kind of got it." And they get into the weeds of it. This is a strange show. Like, this is a strange format. Do you like it? Do you go like, you know what? I'm glad that they did this thing.
Yes, I will always prefer when somebody takes a big weird swing. And even if it doesn't completely work, so much of TV right now it feels safe. It feels based on like franchise or IP or formulas, or like late night has been an ossified form for,
drag them all.
Yeah, I mean, no one is innovating, right? In this. And it's not, I don't blame. I am sure there are lots of people with lots of incredible ideas about like how we could actually reinvent this thing.
Sure.
It's a money problem as much as anything else. It's a sort of who is willing to take risks. And so however this managed to happen, like I am excited about it. One of the things that I think is really fun to think about and is one of the choices they're clearly making is celebrity profiles. Celebrity appearances on talk shows have also become incredibly safe, incredibly scripted.
Yes.
Profiles are like either celebrities writing their own profiles, or they're being interviewed by their friends, or the questions are all. And so there is something that happens when you get random tree expert next to bigger celebrity. And so even though that's a very strange mix, what you see is like elements of these people's personalities that they can't hide in the same way. And so you get these different portraits of them. Last night, Sarah Silverman was on with Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And Sarah Silverman seemed pretty annoyed to like have to sit and listen to someone else talk. She was like, am I not
like, I'm the famous one. I'm the Jerry Seinfeld had to sit next to a coyote expert, right?
Exactly.
And they should have to do that. That is a normal way. I agree with you. I think like it is always more exciting to watch a show that is taking some big swings. Can I just play? They also have some of these live call-ins. Can I just play this clip of this live call-in real quick? Let's hear it.
Hey, I have a crazy coyote story for you. I wake up to my dog jumping off my bed. I look over, and there's a huge coyote in my bedroom.
What?
And the crazy thing is that I live on the second floor.
Elevator? Or walk up?
Stairs.
When she says stairs, that's the best part. Okay, John Mulaney has been very open about all of the struggles that he's been going through over the past few years. He's had a tough few years. And then this is the next thing that he does. It makes sense of that for me. Why do you think this is the thing that he wanted to do, is like this kind of wacky thing that doesn't always work, but is, quite a risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has always had elements of this. Sack Lunch Bunch on Netflix is a very strange, like from the mind of kind of experiment. I also think it's one of his best works. I think he is best when he is weird and sort of just allowed to do whatever is happening in his head. But at the same time, like, he's also very clear, and I would suspect sincere when he says things on the show, as he has, like, I am doing this because it's good for me to have a routine, right? And like, I think that is both funny and probably has at least a kernel of truth to it.
Yeah.
And he is some of the things that make him most interesting are his ability to be fascinated by other things.
Yes.
And this is a way where you can sort of sit and watch him grow bored with things quickly and then shut them down.
Yeah.
And then actually find himself deeply engaged in this bizarre conversation with a hypnotherapist, which happened last night, who had the craziest wig I have ever seen, and no one mentioned it. It's just an incredible show. Like, this is what TV should be.
This is what TV should be. I wish we had more time so we can talk about the fact that like Netflix is doing all these live offerings, because they did a Cat Williams special that was live. They did the Tom Brady roast that was live. This show is live. But we don't have the time to talk about that. Kathryn, we've run out of time. Thank you for being here, though. I appreciate you, friend.
Anytime.
I highly and wholeheartedly recommend that people watch John Mulaney Presents Everybody's in LA. It is streaming right now on Netflix. Kathryn VanArendonk is a TV critic at Vulture. My name is Elamin Abdul Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion, and this show will be back tomorrow. And you know what? I'll see you then.